Hello and welcome. I'm your host, author Ryan M. Oliver, and this is the Mighty Books Podcast. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, I have Mr. Hussein Al-Baiaty. He is a business owner and graduate of Portland State University's School of Architecture. In 2016, he launched Refugees, creating graphic tees that expand awareness while donating much-needed items to local and international refugees. Hussein volunteers his time at many events and causes throughout the year, including serving on the Oregon Commission on Asian Pacific Islander Affairs. In 2018, he received the Immigrant of the Year Award. In 2021, Hussein launched the Resilience Club to provide artists and creatives the coaching and accountability they need to excel. Hussein, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah, I'm excited. We've been dancing a little while, just trying to get a hold of each other.
Yeah,
We've been very
definitely.
busy lately. I'm
Busy,
glad.
man.
Yeah,
It's a good fourth quarter,
yeah,
Start
yeah,
off strong and the
yeah.
year will,
hmm
But yeah, man, it got busy and I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, I am too. So today we're here to talk about your book, your life experience, and you've got a very incredible, compelling story. Just to start off that right off the bat here. But what is the title of your book that we're talking about today?
Yeah, the book is titled Art of Resilience, The Refugee State of Mind. And yeah, it's basically my memoir coming from a war-torn Iraq in the 1990, early 1990, late 80s sort of war situation, the Gulf War,
hmm
and then going into a refugee camp, and then and then sort of how art and my father and my siblings played a huge role, significant role in raising me in America and whole world, right? My name is Hussein, hanging out with a bunch of white folks in Portland, Oregon, and Beaverton, Oregon. So that was just a hell of a story. And, I learned so much about myself, life, people who take care of us, support structures, hope. So the whole book is really about unraveling the idea of resilience. And it's not that some of us have it and some of us don't or anything like that. It's just there's components of resilience that appear at different points of our life.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like how my dad used to say that, like, you'll never paint one masterpiece. Your entire collection of art and who you become is the masterpiece, which is really
Awesome.
cool because I feel like that's kind of what resilience is as well. It's not like a one thing or an event or something changed or your life evolved. It's an ever growing thing that you
Yeah.
become.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got the opportunity to sort of flush that out and figure out, write out my life, but also like, identify like that's where I was being really flexible, or
Yeah.
that's where I was being really rigid. And, all these sort of components about resilience are, they're written in all of our story. But once we understand that,
Yeah.
then I'm confident.
Right.
So that's really what the book was about, and really paying homage to my dad and all the amazing things that he taught me. And, after he passed, I just knew that writing that story of how we came to the US was just going to be significant, especially literally my avatar was the younger version of me, which was my nephew, right, who was born here.
hmm
And so, them knowing what it was like for me, their uncles, right, their grandfather, whoever, gone through this process to get them here, right,
hmm
before they even were a thing, like
Yeah.
conceived, is really profound on them. And so, I love it, man. I love using the book to share the story with people and schools and universities. And
Yeah.
so that's another aspect of what I do. I love giving talks and
Yeah. No,
yeah,
you definitely
yeah.
do. I've seen just from just kind of looking around, because I always do a little research before get on together, because I want to know what,
Yeah,
some talking points. But it
yeah,
really, what I read through, it definitely sounded like you were not only leaving a legacy for yourself, but you're leaving one for your father, your siblings, your family, and what you guys
hmm
went through. Because you're from Iraq. Yeah, what you
yes,
guys went through over there, and then your transition over here, because that's not easy to go from one country to another. That by itself is a huge move. It's a culture shock shift.
yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
you gotta how do you adapt and still maintain and hold on to what you guys found interesting or important from your culture, from your country.
Definitely.
It's hard to,
Definitely.
you have to try to integrate it all. So yeah, it's
Exactly. Yeah. And and again, this is not just my story, right? It's really the story of the immigrant, the person that
yes.
comes to America or the West, if you will, right? Not
Mhm.
just America, it could be like the UK, it could be Canada.
Anybody.
Really, you are embedded, you're coming from a different mindset, different culture, different beliefs, different,
Yep.
and not like different to the like essence of it's so drastically different.
No,
Because at the end of it is like we're human. We all kind of want the same things. We're just going about it in different ways. And
exactly.
that's cool. That's actually the salt and pepper, like
Mhm.
that's the
Spice of
sauce,
life.
right? It's what
Yeah.
makes it, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, but growing up in a different environment, I feel like that story is not only important to us to understand ourselves, but also important that other people like me are heard and
Hmm.
seen,
Yeah.
because they may not have the means to write a book, they may not have the ability or want to or
Yeah.
whatever, but their voices should still also be heard. And I felt like the best way to do that was just to share the most vulnerable aspect of who I am, and just kind of, because I kind of wanted it to be like a self-help book, but it actually ended up being more of a memoir and
I
just
love it.
sharing from that story. Yeah.
Well, and the intro, if you don't mind kind of going to this story, it kind of sounded
Yeah.
like it almost ended up being a bit of a self-help book, almost, I don't know, jarring. One guy you talked about in your intro, I think it was you and your wife were
Mm-hmm.
out selling t-shirts
Mm-hmm.
and out
Mm-hmm.
of a van, which I want to get to,
Yeah.
by the way. And
Yeah.
this guy walks up and recognizes you from a speech you did like years ago and like has to
Mm-hmm.
tell you that your talk kind
Mm-hmm.
of jarred him out of his kind of,
Yeah.
lackadaisical existence.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go in that a little bit for when was this? When did that happen?
Yeah. It's I love that story so much. So I started speaking to kids in high schools basically for free. And it was one to kind of practice speaking because I just fell in love with speaking.
Yeah.
And two, a lot of my old teachers and professors would just invite me to come to their class
Oh,
and
cool.
talk about my business, my apparel printing business. But really, it was also like my story and how I came to America. Because a lot of the
Yeah.
students in their classrooms were either Latino or from South Africa or from
Right.
Ghana or whatever, different parts of the world. And they thought that my story would resonate, and sure enough it does, because not only do we have similar stories for the most part, but also like there aren't many of me, people of color, going around speaking to the youth.
Yeah.
And so I felt like an honor to do that, and because I've always wanted to see that.
Hmm.
So so from that perspective, I had been speaking probably from like 2009, 2010. I was still in college when I got invited to speak a few times, and
Cool.
then and that kind of ballooned uh basically from 2010 all the way till I still do it, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. So it was 2000 probably, yeah, like 17 or so, maybe 18. Wife and I were selling refugees out of the van at like a little market,
Yeah.
and
I
this
love
kid
it.
comes up and he's in his cadet uniform, right? So he's getting ready to go into an academy or something. I don't
Oh,
really know
cool.
the
Yeah.
lingo of becoming a police officer.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
he,
Okay.
he eventually wanted to be a detective to help minorities, people who are misunderstood. Like he had a deep story. But what was really powerful was just like you don't know how your words impact others. And in that
Yeah.
moment, it dawned on me that
Hmm.
this kid completely changed his life
Yeah.
from, again, not being late, but he was upset. He was clearly angry with the way life was for him,
Yeah.
his family, or his mom. And he wasn't being a contributor,
Yeah.
right? He was more or less being a complainer and complaining and being mad at the world. And trust me, I've been mad at the world. I
Yeah.
have the right. So,
Hmm.
like, to me, I feel that I do,
Hmm.
right? My country went through war. Things were taken from my family, like dreams, you name it.
Yeah.
Clothes. We literally lived in a desert refugee camp with hardly anything.
Oh,
So like there is anger, definitely,
yeah.
but I feel like there's a period in life where there has to be this release, and my release came through art. And luckily enough for me, I had a father who was an artist who taught me ways to sort of deal with these emotions and pour them out in a way,
Yeah.
right? And art is not the only thing, but we all are creatives. but where do we put that creativity? Where do we put what we're good at, what we're gifted with in? Because if we use that energy, then that anger energy, and fuel the positive thing,
right,
then we're going to move in a positive trajectory.
yes,
Unfortunately, a lot of young people who come from war-torn countries, refugee camps, or even immigrate here because their families are just looking for better work or better
yeah,
opportunities, we're faced with more frustration and anger because sadly, most of the times we're not necessarily the most welcomed group in the
yeah,
world, right? And then on top of that, your name is different, your culture is different, how you do your hair, how you wear a hijab. There's so many clearly visible identifying things that make
yeah,
you different.
sure,
And for a long time, those differences were to be conformed,
hmm,
not to be like liberated so
right,
that you can be different.
yeah,
Today, I feel like it's changed quite a bit, especially in schools and stuff, which is
yeah,
great. However, that kid identified something within me that these words or that story helped him change. It was like a ricochet,
yeah,
right? Change the trajectory. And had I not been in that room that specific day, in that specific hour, saying that, sharing that specific story, who knows what would have happened? I don't know.
right,
But the cool thing is like, wow, we always talk about if I can change one kid
yeah,
during my talk, right, or do one person's life,
exactly,
um, and then for me, it was like it literally made me emotional, and I teared up, and I was like, wow, like it's the moment of like a sigh of like everything you are working towards as far as making some significant impact in the world
yeah,
comes down to this moment of this kid saying, I made this choice to be better and to
yeah,
contribute to my life because you stepped in it for 10 minutes or an
yeah,
hour. And that really shaped how I perceive not only myself, but also the world and
yeah,
what is possible.
yeah. That's
So,
very powerful. That when you realize that your actions and thoughts, words have weight to them and can actually, like you said, change the trajectory of someone's life. Like that is huge. You don't think of yourself as someone who could do that. And when you think of how many people are in the world, we're like, we can't change. You can't change the world with one person. You don't have to change the world with one person, but you can change someone else's life just by showing up, just by saying something positive in the right moment. And it happens more often than we think. We don't even know it's happening. It's like it makes it worth it. It makes you like, wow, I'm doing all this work. Sometimes it's a grind. Sometimes I'm really stressed out. But you saw that, you're like, this is the fruit of my labor, basically. Someone is compelled to tell me that they are now pursuing their dreams because of something that I told them to talk to however many
yeah,
years ago. That's so damn powerful. It's just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
incredible.
seriously. It's one of my favorite stories. And like, I think it's those moments that again, for me, there's a calm in that
Mm-hmm.
moment of just like, okay, wow, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's poetic. It's like it's hard to capture it with words because
Yeah,
it's such a
it's
moment,
it is
and
such a moment.
I hold it so dearly because, again, words do have value and they do
Mm-hmm.
have power, and it's just a matter of who's receiving them at what
Yeah.
time and when they need to hear it. And yeah,
Speaking of words have power, there was a word that was mentioned and you talked about in the book, and I forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. It's inshallah.
inshallah. Yeah.
Inshallah. Okay, so
Yeah.
you said, and I saw a quote what you said. It was like one of the hardest words, or a word. It took you a long time to really understand the profound meaning behind the
Yeah.
word. Could you
Yeah.
kind of explain,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
whole word and the process there?
Definitely.
Cool.
So in our Middle Eastern culture, we say the word inshallah, which means God willing. If God allows it to be, if it's in our good, it will happen based on if this means something for us in the future, right?
Yeah.
If it's a good thing, Allah will make it happen for you. And it's very wrapped in hope,
Yeah.
right? Like if you were to just take hope and put that word next to it, it
Mhm.
just means, yeah, hopefully good things will happen from this.
Yeah.
And so, but it's an auto response about everything for people in the culture, right? It's just like, for me, for a long time, I think it lost its meaning,
Yeah.
right? And so throughout the book, I'm trying to rediscover the meaning of this word that
Mhm.
is, in a way, describes resilience, right? Is that if you stay patient and you will see this through, something will reveal itself. And if I tell you what that thing is, then you may not be resilient, then you may not seek that thing, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty, I think, about the Middle Eastern culture is very intertwined
Mhm.
religiously and culturally. If you pull them apart, you know, religion is just, it's just a way of thought, you know,
Yes.
kind of like just seeking a better version of yourself, to where
Mhm.
culture pulls from that, right? And uses color, art, expression, music, you know, all of these things that are wrapped around that. And so
Yeah.
when you say inshallah, it's kind of the interweaving of culture and religion is like,
Mhm.
is that I hope everything works out. And so I was trying to discover this hope throughout the book and throughout the story and what that word actually means.
Mhm.
And you know, I won't give it away, but like
No,
I
yeah.
eventually came to the idea that yeah, it's a way of like getting you to see that what's coming isn't the important thing. It's just how you are now, right? And because what's coming is coming,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, and who you are though is what's going to prepare you for that,
Right.
you know, and that you can control. And so like pulling the word apart, meaning like insha, and so it's like hopeful, and then
Yeah.
Allah. I'm hopeful that Allah is going to provide the best outcome. And again, religion and culture, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're both beautiful. And I go throughout the book just kind of, I bring that up a few times, how my father mentions it to me, how my mother says it to me,
Yeah.
you know, how I start saying it to things, but really further and further identifying how I come to understand it was was a big sort of side by side story of understanding resilience and
Yeah.
understanding this one word, which
Right.
is essentially resilience in the form of culture and religion. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, if it'll definitely make sense if if people read your book. That's a thing. So
definitely.
just help plug that hole there.
Yeah,
Go read the book,
definitely.
guys. It's okay. So speaking of your resistance, or resilience, excuse me, resilience, layers of resilience. You say that quite a bit. What do you mean by that? We were kind of talking before we hit record
Mhm.
about like your comfort zone and
Mhm.
what your comfort zone is. And you're like, I really don't know if I have a comfort zone anymore because I'm pretty much comfortable with a lot of things. I mean, you said that kind of
Yeah.
sounded like it was almost the same thing.
Yeah, I'm so glad you went there, man. I think, you know, when we say that person over there is resilient, especially when like, I'll start with this, right? We love story because in every story, there
Yeah.
is a being going up against something that seems unsurmountable,
Yeah.
right? At least to us, to some degree, or that we have a relatable story in that we've gone through something similar.
Yeah.
And so there is something tragic, dramatic, and powerful, but also exciting and curiosity driven for us human, right?
Yeah.
Like to understand that story. So resilience, I didn't honestly know that that was going to be the theme of the book. It's not until I wrote the entire book that I realized, oh wow. And through some beta reader
Funny. Yeah.
feedback, they were like, wow, like there's a whole theme here that I feel like you need to lean in on. And I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
I see it too. I just wasn't sure that that's where I wanted to lean.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of writing, right? Is that it's we feel like we have a thing that we're going to write about. We know the story,
Yeah.
but we also, there's a part of that story that will only reveal itself through the action of you writing it,
Yeah.
because memories will come up, things will come up that will start to
True.
reveal places and components of this arc in unique ways that you haven't seen before, which is
Yeah.
amazing. So that's the beauty of that art style, is the
Yeah.
revelation. And so for me, what I realized was that resilience may seem like just a word, but I feel
Mhm.
like it's the top of the iceberg, you know, that you
Yeah.
see, like, and then
Oh
below the
yeah.
water is all these other components that actually that you can say point to eventually that that's what makes up resilience, right? Is
Yes.
that there's like hope and flexibility and transparency and like change and support, and all of these things working together is
Yeah.
what actually makes that person resilient, because
Hmm.
that person himself or herself or their self is
Yeah.
not just standalone resilient, like a
No.
friggin' totem pole in the middle of whatever, right? That's not how it works.
No.
You need people, you need experiences, you need challenges, you need all of these things to work
Yes.
against you and with you.
Mhm.
And that's really what shapes up how not rigid, but more flexible you become, more
Yeah.
understanding, more accepting, right? And that's kind of like what book two, what I'm working on now, is
Oh,
the other
cool.
version of resilience, is that it's not a push, it's more of like a pull,
Hmm.
right? And that is a really interesting place because that allows for tension in each layer. And so I think of it as like a garden, right?
Yeah.
So that's the soil of resilience. And now you can plant things in the soil of resilience
Hmm.
because it has all the nutrients
Yes.
that can allow for whatever you're planting to grow,
Yeah.
which is where like the rose fist comes through, the
Yeah.
icon of, and I go further into, like in the new book, I go further into this ideology of a garden, what it means to accept and pull and attract,
Right.
as opposed to when we think resilience, we think we're pushing against something.
Yeah.
And that thing usually that we're pushing against is actually just making us stronger,
It
right?
is.
Like we're lifting weights,
Hmm.
and running and doing all these,
That's
like we're
that's what I
training.
was thinking. Yeah, when
So
you were saying
yeah, so
that. Push and
resilience is
pull.
training. Yeah, what happens next? What's the, it's life, right?
Yeah.
It's the in between. It's the moments in between the moments of training. And I think in the moments of between training, there's lived experiences where
Yes.
you get to now
Huge.
practice that specific layer. And I think for me, that's what it revealed, was that like as you're breathing, it's like you learn about patience, you see patience being displayed in front of you, like through my father and my brothers and stuff,
Yeah.
right? And you see art and how that plays a role. And then now it's your time to practice patience. And here's the challenge
Hmm.
that revealed how you practiced
Yeah.
that. And it may have not been great, and it sucked, or it was
Right.
really fantastic and
Yeah.
celebratory. Um, but you get to get the lesson, and then you get the you get the experiment,
Yeah.
and then you get to repeat the lesson and experiment if you failed,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like failing and whatever just teaches you more. So that was the beauty of
Yes.
kind of clearing it up and saying, here are the layers of resilience, because I
Hmm.
feel like we talk about resilience as like one thing, but
Yeah.
it's really a multitude of things.
It's so much. Well, and I love that you're talking about there are no failures. Like that was something I love, and we've been starting to instill that more in our kids. Like with they did wrestling earlier this year, and
Okay.
my this coach, our it's actually their PE teacher, oddly enough, he
Yeah.
was like, "You didn't fail. Like you lost the match, but you didn't fail." We're like, what do you like? They're like, what do you mean? They're young.
Yeah.
They don't know what you're talking
I
about.
lost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lost. So I need to be sad and angry. No, 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 no. What did you do? What did you do wrong? What did you do that you want to improve on? They're like, well, I don't know all these moves. Right. So you just
Yeah.
learned that you don't know something.
You know
So that's a
something.
win. So now you go learn that thing and you try again, and your odds are of succeeding in that one match have improved. So
Yeah.
failing, I find
Beautiful.
I am an excellent learner when I fail. I just do so much
Yep.
better. I need to learn to
Yep.
fail. If someone is doing things for me, I will never learn. I'm like, let me fail. I will look at someone and go, stop doing this for me. Let me fail. I need to screw up
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just not going to compute with me. And
Bro, I can't agree with you more.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
I didn't speak English, bro. I
right.
didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know, like nothing, right? Like
Yeah.
you're just starting from scratch in the middle. So failing was completely part of the resilience. Like it's just
Yes.
complete. That's what makes the resilience actually have electricity, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is if you're not going to practice and fail,
Yeah.
then you will not become resilient
Yeah.
because
Facts.
you're not pushing against that thing that's actually going to give you the muscle, the mental
Mm-hmm.
fortitude.
Yes.
So, and failing just it's that's all it is like for me, it's just pushing up against that wall a little bit
Mm-hmm.
further. And then as you get better as to how to push that wall. You get really
Yes.
technical about it and understand the wall. And like there's so many, now do I even need to push against it? Right. I can overcome it with just elevating myself.
Yeah.
And it's just and accepting the challenge. I feel like the
Yes. Accepting the
challenges
challenge.
are opportunities, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
just hidden. They're just in the block of
Yep.
concrete. And then once you break it, you're like, oh, there's the diamond right there.
Yeah.
And I think, not every single challenge comes with opportunity, but
No.
but in a lot of ways it does. Like there's so many. I mean, from Marcus Aurelius to like freaking to prophets to Buddha to whatever, they all kind of have that saying of like the obstacle is the way. Like the
Yes.
thing that is the challenge, deep down inside, there's a way not around it, but through it,
Yes.
and using its own power against itself. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like if you can figure that out, you have now just solved every problem you could possibly have because you have a way to approach the problem. And I think that's a beautiful way to intertwine what resilience means and failing. And
Yeah.
I love that story about your kids because the sooner we can teach that, right? The sooner we put them in uncomfortable
We
positions where
need
they
to.
can fail,
Yeah.
the better, because
Yes.
that's life and
Yep.
it's okay.
It is. And you know what's funny is, I love it's the art of resilience, because you have it, your history is your personal history is deep seated in art, with your father's art and then your own. And I'm sure you have other family members who loved art in their ways as well. But I found, like, I'll go back to one of my sons is very artistic. He loves it. He's sprouting into quite a little artist. He's only 7, but
I love
he
it.
loves
I
it.
love it.
And it's so cool. But what's funny is, and we have to get him on. Trying to get better with him, but he goes,
Mm-hmm.
I want to draw this. Like, all right, go for it. And he goes and does it. And then I want to do something else. So he tries to do something a little harder. Oh, dear Lord, when he can't make it perfect. So he's a perfectionist and he's an artist, which I think kind of go hand in hand. I really
They
think that
do.
does. It does.
They do.
Yeah. A good buddy of mine was like that. Or is like that. He drew this amazing portrait of Marilyn Monroe. I'm like, it looked like a photograph. And he's
Yeah.
like, what do you think? I'm like, this is stunning. Put it in a frame, put it up, and this is
Yeah.
amazing. He was like,
Or sell it. Yeah.
and he's like, no, this is trash. He just rips it in front of him, like, what are you doing? He's like, no, no, there's problems with
Yeah.
this. Are you kidding me? But then he
Yeah.
did it again. He learned from that. And, he was right. He those little the devil's in the details kind of a thing. He learned, he pushed through that perfectionism, and he elevated
Yeah.
his work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
trying to build that with a little man there, because he'll do something. I'm never doing art again. Like, you'll do art
Yeah.
again because you love it.
Yeah.
It's just what you got to do. And then he end up 3 hours later, he's drawing again, and he does better. But he has to, like, I don't know, give himself that room to get upset with himself. It's just interesting. But
Yeah, man.
yeah,
I can't agree more with Little Man because
yeah,
art does have a very unique way of pulling you in,
he
right?
does.
Because it's the thing that really, the thing that we love, I genuinely believe as human beings, whatever it is that interests us, right? It's the thing that takes us out of the context of time.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't understand time anymore, we're just doing this thing, whatever it is, and you look up, it's 5 hours later.
Yeah,
You go into that flow, and that happens as a baby, older, whatever,
yeah,
right? But
beautiful
if you
thing.
can go there, and I think that's the frustrating thing is, like, in your mind, like as an artist and as a person that creates whatever, like in your mind, there's an expectation,
Yeah.
because in your mind there is no time. The
Mm-hmm.
time is that you are a great artist, you are
Yeah,
great at this thing, but your capabilities, your talents, your
yeah,
gifts have not evolved enough yet. I'm talking hours or days or
mm-hmm.
weeks, because they can evolve that fast.
Yeah,
And once at some point there is going to be this cross, right,
yeah,
where your abilities are so phenomenal,
yeah.
right, and you are happy with how you experiment, right, and that's where it really, I think that for me was the hardest thing to understand growing up, was that my father was just trying to experiment and was
Yeah.
always teaching me to experiment. And that, again, that idea of like the masterpiece, the most beautiful piece you'll ever create is your life.
I love
And
that.
it's a life full lived, like, and painted, and
Yeah.
it's not limited to the canvas. You could be a poet, you could paint, you could do a video, you could do, that's art. Is like what you bring, you are the art. It's
Well,
then what you bring yourself to
right.
that then manifests,
So to kind
and
of bring
that,
back to your saying about the garden, though, it's
yeah.
the same thing. That
Mhm.
one blade of grass or one flower is a part of the garden, but you take a step back, and all of the flowers, all the bushes, trees, whatever you want, vegetables, whatever you grow, that is what you're building in your life.
Masterpiece.
That's the beauty,
Yeah.
the masterpiece. Exactly. It's the garden.
Yeah.
It's not just the one
Yeah.
flower, it's the freaking garden,
Yeah.
or the
And that's
forest,
the thing
whatever
that
you want to do.
attracts exactly. That's the thing that attracts opportunity,
Yeah.
people, your kids,
Yeah.
fortune, like all the things, right? Like we feel like we have to go and find and seek and work hard. And that's to some degree, you need to do that.
Yeah.
But there's also this part of like attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the place where I'm at today. And I'm realizing how much that work, that first book really led me to this idea.
Isn't that cool?
So, yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. So I want to learn a little bit about your speaking, because you do some speaking, and when you started this in the high schools, and where has it gone to? What venues been speaking to? How long you've been speaking for? How often do you do it? Yes.
Yeah, speaking is, man, I mean, again, it's like everything else, like writing, like painting, like whatever. To me, it's another way to express myself and share story. And I fell in love with it because they say the pen's mightier than the sword, but really the only thing mightier than the sword is the mic. Can you bring people together through storytelling, through share? Because if two people on either end of an argument, let's just say, find a commonality, that commonality is probably going to be through story, whatever it may be. And at least that could bring some peace to the moment, whatever that may be.
Yes.
And again, I'm not out here just trying to bring peace to the moment, but I'm just out here trying to help people recognize the debate and arguments that we have within ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Which is our biggest sort of war, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And if we can kind of get aligned with that and understand how resilient we are and how far we've come, and remember the people that have been in our lives, and be thankful to them and grateful to them, and recognize them, truly recognize them, and see them. And then that makes us see ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah.
And if we can bring ourselves into a brighter light, whatever that is, then everything from that moment, everything around us, our work, everything just gets a little bit better. Right. And it's just that perspective shift. So my goal is, I call myself the reminder. Like when I go and speak, I'm merely reminding you of who you are through my story.
Yeah.
So I talk about not having water and what it is to have water. I talk about having challenges and then getting married, like all of these aspects that all of us have gone through at some point. But I'm bringing your awareness back down to the most important component, which is yourself, right? The 6 inches between your ears.
Yes.
And how you see yourself. And so, we need a reminder. We need a constant reminder. I think that's why art is so prevalent.
Yeah.
Is that it speaks things that we already know to our core, but we just need to see it over and over again. That's why history repeats itself, and it can repeat itself in a positive way if we start creating more positive outcomes.
Absolutely.
So I speak a lot to leaders today, mostly to universities, things like that. But like, I do some sales type conference things. I do quite a bit of basically like retreats and things like that, where people come in and do leadership thought work and like how to really, whether it's their business, whether it's their community, whether it's like they're working for the state or local government. So my goal is to get inside their head and just pluck out their own memories and see how they can digest them and see their own resilience in that, and then how to bring that forward in the work that they're doing. I started speaking to high school students. I still do every now and then, but like the thing is, I didn't get paid to speak for like 10 years, right?
Wow.
And all of that was just to practice stories. And I still do it today. Like the other 2 weeks ago, I went to this thing called the Odyssey. Literally, I have a sticker here.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like this thing called the Odyssey. And it's a storytelling thing that happens in Tucson, Arizona, where people can come and share stories. And I was just like, oh, I need to practice this one story that I need to tell on my next talk or whatever. So put yourself in a position where you get to practice.
Yes.
Where you get to be uncomfortable, where you get a little bit nervous, where you get, because now you're about to push yourself somewhere you haven't been yet. And again, I'm not saying jump out of planes or nothing like that. I'm just like, whatever that craft is for you, like push yourself. It took me a long time to do oil painting.
Yeah.
And my dad I used to do a lot of acrylic. And my dad was like, why haven't you oil painted yet? What, you can get such a better XYZ. And I'm like, be honest with you, Pops, like I'm scared of it. And he
Yeah.
laughed. He's just like, you're scared of what? The paint? Like,
Yeah.
were you
Yeah.
scared of it to dry too fast? What are you scared of exactly? I'm like, I don't know. I'm scared that
You're
I'm
scared of
not going to be as
failing.
good as you, or
Yeah.
whatever. And he's like, well, now you're comparing, and that's not your fear. That is something deep inside of you that's stealing the joy of actually experimenting.
Yeah.
So what you need to be thinking about is experimenting, and that should let go of the idea of you being better than someone, because you're
Yeah.
not there to be better. You're just there to experiment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
through experimentation, you
Mhm.
get better,
Yes, you
right?
do.
Like,
It's amazing.
so yeah,
It's
yeah,
simple but not easy. It's simple but not
yeah,
easy.
yeah.
And
And
I
those are the kinds of things that I talk about. Like I
yeah,
talk about stories from my dad, lessons I learned,
awesome.
leadership things, art things that a lot of people can really. My goal is to get people to feel something, and if
Hmm.
and my goal is to do two things: make you laugh and make you cry.
Yeah,
And if I can do one or the other or both during my talk, and I don't mean to
awesome.
make you cry, like I'm going to make you cry. Like, no, no, no. I want you to become emotional about how amazing you are.
Right. That's
And
amazing.
when you remember that, you get emotional, and then the positive outlook can really start to begin.
Yeah.
So
When I love that, like just talking with, I've talked with almost 70 authors in the last 2 years. It's just been super cool. And what I found is that pretty much everybody, I mean, especially yourself, those who speak, especially those who speak, are very self-reflective. And when you are self-reflective, you can kind of pull out the insecurities, like, well, I'm really not great at this and I want to improve. How do I do that? You end up finding challenges for yourself or opportunities for yourself to grow. And it's when
100%.
you're self-reflective and you're honest with yourself about, man, I'd really like to do this. I like to what you want, what you're bad at, what you're good at. It's incredible what you can change or how you can push or pull your life into the right way. So I
Yeah.
love when people are self-reflective and think about, just take a moment, pause. What can I do to either improve my life or other people's? And everyone benefits from that. It's not
Right.
selfish. It's everyone
Right.
benefits from that. So I
Right.
love that you're
Absolutely.
doing that with everybody with your talks. It's really cool that you're doing that. So
Absolutely,
it's
man.
good
Yeah, and
stuff.
it's a beautiful gift that I
Hmm.
get to share, and I get to hone in on,
Yeah.
and thankfully, more recently, I get paid for it too. So that's
Yeah.
really fun. You know what I
That's a
mean?
bonus.
That is a bonus, man, and it is a gift for that bonus. It's not a mandatory thing, especially working
Yeah.
with me. But like, my thing is that it is a gift, and it is something that I always work on and develop.
Yeah.
And the older and wiser I've gotten, I feel like the sharper and more fluid the stories come.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That's
man,
amazing.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it always is. We're always a work in progress. We got
Yeah,
time. Just use as much time as you can and just hone in and craft
definitely.
craft that masterpiece. You know what I mean? Craft that
Yes.
masterpiece. So we were talking about little making money. So Refugees is your
Hmm.
graphic design. You had
Yeah.
t-shirts. Now it's still going on?
No, so
No? Okay. So I knew there was a
quite a
story to
few things
this.
happened. Yeah, quite a few things happened. So 2020 2019 is when I decided to write my book, because
Yeah.
so many people kept asking for all these things, and I was like, it's time.
Yeah.
I'm ready to do it. Let me sign up for this thing. So I signed up for this program called Scribe. And I knew in 2019 that in 2020 I was going to sell my shop, because I was ready to kind of move forward. I wanted to go further into art, creating. Um, I wanted to create a YouTube channel. I wanted to share more of my wisdom, those kinds of things,
Yeah.
speak more.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew there was, like, I just wanted a new pathway, and I just felt like the printing world, as amazing as it was,
Yeah.
for me, I felt like I couldn't grow anymore in that
Oh,
space,
okay.
and I was drained a little bit, because when running a big business, you're basically a manager, right? You're
You are.
managing people now. You're managing, and not that there's anything wrong with that. I love being a leader, but I just didn't see where else I can take it. And if I was going to take it further and bigger, it meant just more, more, more. And I didn't want that lifestyle. What I wanted was to have enough of the things that I love doing.
Yeah.
So what did that mean? I don't know. It like meant that I needed to sell this thing so I don't have to worry about it, and then kind of figure it out. So between 2019 and 2021, well, COVID,
Yeah.
the world did its thing.
Was weird.
And 2020, I still sold my shop for not as much money as I was hoping to get out of it.
Sure.
But that's okay. I learned a lot there. And then my wife and I decided to move to Arizona
Yeah.
and kind of start a new chapter, if you
Yeah.
will. And I'm so glad we did, because again, everything I knew was in Portland. Everyone I knew was in Portland, right? Like
Right.
as far as connections, and to me, connections are the bloodline of
Oh,
the
absolutely.
network body, right? So that was a little challenging, but at the same time, I knew now how to lean on the connection maker that is the internet,
Yeah.
right? And this window now that we can, like literally a portal, right, between us to speak to one another.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I can lean on to this, make more new connections from people around the world,
Hmm.
and expand my awareness a little bit more. And in that time, I started working with Scribe. I got recruited to work with them and start working on community management, marketing stuff, whatever. And
Nice.
then, unfortunately, early this year in May, that unfortunately collapsed. And
Oh,
so I went off and just started this thing called Rising Authors. And
yeah.
basically, it's a community, it's a space where authors can connect and work together and with experts. So I gathered a lot of the people that kind of were a part of that fallout and brought them together in a
Oh,
raft, if you will,
great.
which is
Yeah.
now turning into a boat, thank God. Yeah. And then I ended up launching my book in June of 2021.
Heck yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. But I learned a lot in that launch, and I learned that what happens after is even more important than what happens during the launch, right?
Yeah.
As far as marketing, and I knew a lot of what to do, and it took me a while to actually put that into practice. So
Yes.
now I work directly with authors to make sure that post-launch of a book, right, is successful, and it's a
So
journey, and
important.
you have a strategy, and just like you thought about, writing a book and getting it together and publishing it, we also need to think about what happens after and what does
Yeah.
it do for you as an author. And
Hmm.
that's kind of the flip. So I coach people with that. I have what's called a marketing power pack, which I help people like build their website, build their content strategy, all that kind of stuff through coaching.
Yeah.
And then I run the community. And then hopefully we're getting ready to reboot the van, which we can talk about. But yeah, I no longer do refugees.
Okay.
I no longer do apparel printing, things like that. I do have all the connections, and I feel like at some point I might do maybe like once a year, do a launch of something just to celebrate and give back to the refugee community. However, I just felt like it was time to do something just like that I really wanted to do. And I felt
Yeah.
like refugees was interconnected to, honestly, the trauma and the pain that I
Yeah.
have felt in and around survivor guilt, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And
Oh,
as
wow.
much as I loved doing and creating things that helped refugees, I felt like my art was now being sort of tormented by like this thing that I always had to feel like I had to bring up and speak about, and
Yeah.
it's hard to bring it up. It's hard to talk about refugees all the time. It's
Yeah.
hard to talk about that pain. It's
Yeah.
hard to talk about what they're going through. And so for me, I did it already I talk about it all the time. So I was doing it for over a decade,
Oh,
and
man.
I just got emotionally like I've been processing a lot of it, but
Yeah.
also I got emotionally like, okay, I'm tapping out right now.
Hmm.
Maybe I can revisit this later, but let me go do something else that I feel like is just as fulfilling, and more interesting, and like pushing me and making me uncomfortable, right? And learning from other people and
Yeah.
sharing their stories, and what is that like? And
Wow.
so again, here we are, like finding myself shape shifting
Yeah.
in a way to uncover more of that. So
That's
yeah, man.
incredible. So quite the journey there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
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 So speaking of journey, okay. So Ed Connolly, who connected us, who he's
Yeah.
been on the
Shout out to
podcast
Ed.
before. Yeah, shout out to Ed and his book, and he's just awesome. But he mentioned you have a podcast, or you've on a hiatus at the moment, but it was like a
Hmm.
traveling van across the
Yeah.
country. And I'm like, okay, I gotta talk to this guy because that just sounds super
Yeah.
interesting to me.
Yeah.
Okay, what
Yeah.
what is your
So I'll
podcast
tell you about
about?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
please.
I bought this VW Vanagon. It was all beat up. We revamped it, and it was for refugees. So
Okay.
the idea was we travel around Portland in the Northwest. We do markets and events, and I just had a van to do all this stuff out of, right? Sell my T-shirts, do like apparel printing, little things at the back, and it was
Yeah.
just really fun. And then 2020, right? So
Yeah.
then it was like, okay, this thing is just sitting there. We should use it for something. So fast forward through 2020, I was like, oh, it would be a really cool podcast, like studio. And I would just
Uh-huh.
drive around and meet people. That would be really fun. And so I kind of started that early 2021, and then it went into like April.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I had to stop because we moved, and
Yeah.
I honestly didn't have the money to move the van. And I was like, I need to put a pause on this because I still need to learn a few things, a few YouTube things, and I just kind of put it on pause because I was going heavier into Scribe and doing more work with that. And I was just like, let me understand this whole world, publishing, industry, experts. Let me just figure this thing out, and then I'll get back to the podcast.
There's a lot
And then
to
like
it.
see where the real, yeah, like see
Yeah.
where the real needs are.
Hmm.
And then so yeah, so we put that on pause. And literally as we speak, man, like this Wednesday, the van or Tuesday, this van shows up from
That's
Portland.
so
I ship
cool.
it down, I make the investment. And there needs to be a bigger investment to kind of revamp it a little bit and turn it more of a studio. And yeah, hopefully relaunch the Rising Authors podcast show.
That's
And it's
so
really
awesome.
going to be about, it's going to be an investment in as far as like show and telling. So meaning like we're literally going to travel. We're going to meet with authors face to face in the van,
That's
talk
so
about
amazing.
themselves, talk about, you know, their businesses, talk about who they are, what they're doing. But I always thought it would be cool to have also meetups or go to bookstores or highlight feature whatever. And like the van, it would be just like the character in that story that also
Yeah.
shares different parts of who we all are as a collective, you know, human body, if
Yeah.
you will. And I think the van is going to play, you know, and I'll be honest, man, I almost sold it like like 100 times.
I'm
I just could
sure.
not get myself to bring
Yeah.
to sell it because I just
Yeah.
felt like this thing is it wants to share stories. And I don't know what it is about this thing because I could have easily have rented different vans at different places and
Yeah.
it just didn't feel the same. So ultimately we're rebooting hopefully in March of this year of this
Yeah.
next year. And then yeah, going up and down the West Coast and do a bunch of episodes and have a really cool story in mind to unravel and do. And yeah, man, it's going to be really exciting. And that's the thing
That's
about
so
being a
cool.
content creator as well, too, right? Is that you want to create something that people could really enjoy, but also learn from.
Heck yeah.
And it, kind of tying it back into the reminder thing, it's like, well, I don't have to just be in a classroom. I don't have to just be in front of an auditorium.
No.
I could do this on my YouTube channel and I can
Yeah.
speak to hundreds, if not thousands of people on a regular basis
So
through my
cool.
storytelling abilities with this van, with my dog, with my
Yeah.
wife, you know, whatever it
Yeah.
is, these little travel adventures, but more specifically around the authors that I get to meet. And what there are authors that I want to speak to because I want to learn something from. And I think there's a story in that moment, and
Oh
then
yeah.
what they share and how they share and you know promoting them and all that kind of stuff will play a big role. So
That
we'll
is
see.
so, oh yeah, I'm excited for you. That just sounds so awesome. I mean, just
Thank you,
from what
man.
I do, because meeting authors and I'm doing it via
Yeah,
Zoom, just because that's
yeah.
convenient. It's the way I can't necessarily go and travel around. I only have so much time, but it's like
Time. Yeah,
that's what you're able to do. Oh, it's so cool. It's
yeah.
just
Well, and
super
that's the thing,
unique
right? And that's
and fun
yeah. And
and
as a
fun.
and again, for me, I really like it's hard and challenging, and there's an opportunity inside of it.
Heck
And
yeah.
I think if I can take a month away or like
Mhm.
3 weeks away, or my friends and I have talked about what does it look like at 2 weeks? You know, what does it look like
Yeah.
at a week? Like,
Yeah.
what can we actually get away with? And it's like,
Probably a lot.
you can get away with a lot, right? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, what are the constraints and how can we use that and be creative? And I
Yeah.
think that is the essence and beauty of resilience is
Hmm.
like now I get to have this other perspective of resilience is that resilience is actually just understanding what the challenge is and seeing who can help you. What else do you need? You know, really breaking down the
Yeah.
layers and saying what layers do we really need the most right now, right?
Yeah.
And then implementing something that I know will be challenging for me, and that's what I'm looking for. Some a
Right.
way to challenge myself, but also do something awesome
Yeah.
and archive it so
Hmm.
that my kids, you know, I don't have kids yet, but like my nephews, my nieces, whoever sees this is also, again, perhaps maybe inspired to do something else, to grow, to be
Heck
better,
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just being resourceful, because like you said, with that level of resilience comes resourcefulness, because you see all these challenges, and it's really easy to spiral and go, man, I can't do this because it's this. But if you attack and go, okay, all this is an opportunity to find a solution. It might take a while, but once you do, it'll start snowballing, and all those solutions will come, problems will fall by, and then you're having yourself a good time. I mean, that's what a part of resilience is. And man, I'm just thinking of all sorts of cool things you guys can be doing while you can go see all
I
like
love it. And
national
that's why I'm
parks
gonna
and
bring you on the community. Yeah,
heck
man. You're
yeah.
gonna, yes,
Oh
all of
man.
that. And that's the thing. It's the other aspect of it is that I want it to be very community driven. So the idea is to invite people into our circle community where,
Amazing.
we share a lot of the behind the scenes, and the community can drive like what the episodes could look like,
Right.
where could we go next, where, be a part of this
Yes.
thing that we're going to create
Oh,
together.
there's
And
so
there's
much.
nothing better than that. So yeah,
No, and there's so many opportunities. I think you will be
yeah.
able to, like, almost overwhelmingly, like I'm just like
That's
swimming
what I
right
mean.
now. I'm like, holy cow.
Yes.
Because when you start
Yes.
doing stuff like this, like we were talking about before, when you're an entrepreneur and you're building things, a community, you can just do more with people. You can just do more when you involve more people. And if when you're involving the whole United States, Canada, out the entire world, I mean, it'd be kind of cool to
Yeah.
drive your van all throughout the
Yeah.
North and South America. I mean, I don't know how that would
Yeah,
work,
man.
but you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
just meet up with people
There's a
everywhere.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
There's
a
a will,
way,
there's a
and
way.
we'll figure it out, and
Yeah.
the beginning is like, let me just drive this thing up from Arizona up to literally to Seattle to
Yeah. Yeah.
Washington. And if I need to go further, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, up and down the West Coast. And then the next season will be like, back down or whatever. And like, just
Yeah.
have fun with the seasons, and like, where is this guy gonna go next? And
Yeah.
who is he going to talk to next? And why is that important? And what library or what bookstore or what festival?
Oh
Like all
yeah.
these. There's so much to explore, like you said.
Oh
Um,
man.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited for
it'll
you.
be
That
fun.
just sounds so cool. I'm
Yeah, well,
excited
you're
for
gonna be
you.
right there. I tell people like, I
Oh
want you
yeah.
in the driver's side, like
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
like just sit there, hang out with it, and we're gonna do this together. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
I will definitely be looking out and checking on that's going, because that's just
yeah,
something really cool and exciting, and like I said, unique,
yeah.
and people are going to be gravitate towards that, I feel like.
This time around, I learned so much. Like I said, like learned so much about editing and people, and all
Oh
those things.
yeah.
That we are getting ready to launch our Patreon page, and it's just like a simple. It's like you get to be a part of the community and get the
Hmm.
resources and help us figure out what this
Grow.
awesome
Yeah.
podcast is going to be. And so it's like, pay a tiny bit, you support this entire community, you get to be a part of it, but also like be a part of growing this podcast. And like,
So cool.
I don't care to do like huge sponsorships, although that would be great. But
Sure.
what if it's all just sponsored and put up by the community itself? Like, why not? And there are so many awesome other innovators and creators in this space that do similar things. And I'm like, this is cool. What a great way to lay the foundation for what I could do.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Yeah.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
speaking of resources and amazing things, where can people
Yeah.
get your book? Because it is amazing,
Yeah.
and it's a great
Thank
story,
you.
and it's has
Thank you.
wonderful lessons just riddled throughout. Where can people
Yeah.
A, get a hold of you, and B, get a hold of your book?
Yeah. So I would say, if you want to get a hold of me, go to LinkedIn and just search my name, Hussein, Hussein, and then Al-Baiaty, Albiaty. So, or if you could Google it, it'll probably give you my LinkedIn, it'll give you my website.
Great.
But then you can go to rising-authors.com. If you're interested in joining the community, just click the community tab. If you're interested in learning more about me and my book, you can find my book and you can buy it. The link basically takes you to Amazon as well. It's in my About page. And yeah, if you want to just go to Amazon.com, look up Art of Resilience, The Refugee State of Mind. A book should come up, and you can support there. I am working on a audiobook, hopefully in the next couple of months, but I'm going to release that in podcast style, which will be really fun.
Cool.
So we're working on a couple different things. So if you
That's
follow
awesome.
me, I'm always up to something. I'm always sharing about the experience of being an author and what that's like. And yeah, follow me so I can learn from you as well.
Yep. I love that so much. Well, He's saying this has been really cool, man. I love chatting with you. Like we instantly started connecting. We probably killed 20 minutes before starting. It probably could have been good to hit the record button right when you got on, but
No, man, it was great.
it was good stuff. Yeah. So when you get this podcast moving and grooving, you got your second book on in the works, it sounds like.
In the works.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would
Probably won't be out till, honestly, 2024, 2025.
totally,
It's
totally.
it's books, man. It just
Books
take
are
a long time.
they're slow growing like forests, like gardens.
Exactly. There you go, man.
Full
There you
circle.
go.
Yeah, but definitely would love to have you back on again for more interviews, or heck, we can probably pick a couple of topics and just talk about that
Yeah.
on my
Love
Ryan's
it.
Ramblings little segment I got going on. Just
Love
really
it.
explore getting
Yeah,
to know
man.
each other a little more,
Yeah.
man. I think it'd be freaking awesome.
Yeah, man. I
So
would love that.
yeah,
I love talking about marketing and authors and
yes.
publishing marketing and all that good stuff. So anytime
Mm-hmm.
you want to ramble about that, hit me up, man.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put you down as we'll have to do that. We'll set something up. I think that'd be
Let's
really
do it.
cool. Yes,
Let's
let's
do
do it. Working together, it's great.
Perfect.
But yeah, man. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. It sounds amazing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So for
Thank you,
talking
brother.
to me today, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Ryan, I want to say before I go, thank you for your service. Thank you for
Yes.
what you do for our world, for our communities. Thank you for being an awesome dad
Oh,
and
thank you.
an all-around great husband. And I think I met not only a friend, but hopefully a long life friend
I hope so
that I know
too.
will be working together very much. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on your amazing podcast. I'm going to be sharing some of your episodes. Definitely go listen to a few episodes as well.
Amazing.
And yeah, man, I look forward to further connecting and helping each other out. So thanks
Beautiful.
again.
Amazing. And hopefully we can meet in the future. That would be really cool. In person.
Yeah, man. Get ready.
Yes.
I'm driving up there, bro.
You're
So
driving
get
up
ready to
there.
hop in the van.
All right. I think that'd be so cool, guy. All right,
Love
guys. I really hope you enjoyed this. I know I sure did. Check out Hussein's stuff. Check him out. He's got all sorts of cool things coming up down the pipe now. What he's already done. Check him out. Maybe you can go see him speak. That'd be really cool too. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the hell out of this. And as always, stay mighty and keep reading. Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.